All right, so as your warm-up for today, you want to go ahead and do long division on each of these problems, and then we're going to talk about them in just 1 second. Okay, so on number 1, throwbacks to the old days. Remember, this could also be written out as 161 divided by 7. So remember, top dog goes in the house, and we got 7 on the outside. Well, how many times does 7 go into 16? Twice. 2 times 7 gives me 14. And then when I subtract this, I'm going to get 2. I'm going to bring down this 1. How many times does 7 go into 21? 3 times. 3 times 7 is 21. Subtract. I get 0 as my remainder. Now, if you ever want to check this, you can go into your calculator and you can type 7 times 23, and that'll give you 161, which is going to be right under here. Next, we've got 12.18 divided by 2.1. So we're going to go into our calculator, we're going to go in and go 12.18, and 2.1 is going to be on the outside. Now, you could go into your calculator and you could be like, all right, let me do this really quickly. Okay? All right, so again, you're going to, I'm going to rewrite this because it's all a little messy. Okay, so what you're going to do is you've got to ignore the decimal place, essentially. So how many times does 21 go into 121? Well, that's roughly 5 times. Okay, so it's going to be right here. So 5 times 21. So I'm going to enter my calculator, and I'm going to say 5 times 21. And that gives me 105. And then I've got 121 minus 105. That's going to give me 16. I'm going to bring down that 8. And so now I'm trying to think, how many times does 21 go into 168? So 168 divided by 21, and I think that's roughly 8 times. Okay. Again, you can throw this back in your calculator and say 0.58 times 2.1. Does that give me 12.18? So let's check it. 0.58 times 2.1. Ooh, we need to move decimal place over one more time. So it would really be 5.8. Let's check that. So we're going to have 5.8 times 2.1. And that gives us 12.18. So that's why we check, right? So we want that decimal place over one more. So this would really be 5.8. Okay? So that's why we always want to go back and multiply to check and make sure that underneath our division line, it's good, right? So now on number 3. Number 3 is a little challenging. So let's talk about it really quickly. Okay, so on number 3, we've got 6x minus 15y, and we've got 3 on the outside. So we're going to say, how many times does 3 go into 6x? Well, 2x times. We're going to say, how many times is it, and then we're going to multiply, and then we're going to subtract, and then we're going to bring down that next term. And then we're going to say, how many times does 3 go into negative 15? Well, negative 5y times. So notice how I can take what's up here in the top, multiply it by this thing on the outside, and that gives me what's on the inside. 2x times 3 gives me this. Negative 15y, negative 5y gives times 3 gives me negative 15y, etc. Let's try number 4. So we've got 7a squared minus ab, and we're dividing by a. So we're going to ask ourselves, how many times does a go into 7a squared? Well, 7a times. So then I multiply. And I subtract. And I bring down this next term. And I say a goes into negative ab minus b times. Negative b times a gives me negative ab. So you always want to ask yourself what times the thing on the outside can give you the result at the end. So even if I do this and I subtract, these are going to cancel out. Okay? So we're going to actually talk about long division. And this is something that you learned back in 3rd grade, and it's been a hot minute, but it's okay. So normally you only have one number on the outside. In this case, we're actually going to have 2. Okay, so there's a couple of different things that you need to know. The first thing is the vocab. So the thing on the outside is called the divisor. The thing on the inside is called the dividend. The quotient is what you find, which is up top. And then you've got a remainder that's at the bottom. Okay, so the same thing that when you learned in this in 3rd, 4th grade is going to happen when we do it with a longer polynomial, right? Okay, or in this case, our binomial, right? So same concept is going to happen. You're going to really focus on that first term, though. And we're going to see that in just 1 second. Okay, so we've got y minus 3 on the outside. And then on the inside, we've got negative y squared. And the first thing that we're going to notice on this one is it's not written in standard form. Okay, so we want to make sure that we write this out in standard form. So in this first one, we've got 2y cubed minus y squared plus 25. Okay, so we want this in standard form. Otherwise, we're going to mess up big time. Okay, so now we're going to actually put it underneath the division line. Okay, so I'm going to draw it out. So I've got y minus 3 on the outside, and I've got 2y cubed minus y squared, and we're missing that y term. So I'm always going to add in the missing terms, like the ones that aren't there, and put a 0 in front of it, just to make sure that I don't mess up anything. Okay, so I'm going to throw this in here just to remind myself, hey, make sure that you pay attention to this. Okay, because it is going to change our answer, and we're going to see that in just a second. So the next thing that I'm going to ask myself is, how many times does y go into 2y cubed? So what times y will give me 2y cubed? Well, 2y squared will give me 2y cubed. So now I'm going to multiply this times what's on the outside. So 2y squared times y is going to give me 2y cubed. 2y squared times negative 3, because this guy's chilling out here too, right, is going to give me negative 6y squared. So now I'm going to subtract. And notice how I put brackets around what I just multiplied? Because everything's going to change its sign. These are going to cancel out. And negative y squared minus negative 6y squared is going to give me a positive 5y squared. And I'm going to bring all the rest of this junk down. Okay? So I'm going to ask myself, what times y will give me 5y squared? Well, 5y will. 5y times y is going to give me 5y squared. 5y times negative 3 is going to give me negative 15y. And I'm going to continue this on the next page. Okay, so then now I'm going to actually subtract this. And remember, I'm going to include my brackets to remind me, hey, you've got to make everything change signs. So 5y squared minus 5y squared is going to cancel out. And 0 minus negative 15y is going to make that a positive 15y. And then I'm going to bring this mess down. And I'm going to keep repeating this process until I can't do it anymore. So, for instance, how many times what times y will give you 15y? Well, 15. 15 times y is going to give me 15y. 15 times negative 3 is going to give me, and I'm going to go into my calculator because y'all know it's late at night and I'm trying to figure it out. So it's going to give me negative 45. Then I'm going to subtract. These are going to cancel out. And I'm going to get 25 minus negative 45. So I'm going to have 25 minus negative 45, which is going to give me positive 70. Now, I'm sitting here and thinking to myself, I can't take something and multiply it times y and get 70. So this guy is called the remainder. Okay? So what I'm going to do with him is I'm going to pull him up here. And this stuff that's on the outside, I'm going to put him on the bottom. So my final answer, what I'm going to write out at the end, is 2y squared plus 5y plus 15 plus 70 over y minus 3. Okay, and I know that's a lot of information. Okay, so let's recap really quickly. So we're going to say, make sure that we write it out in standard form. So here's your step 1. Make sure it's in standard form. Okay, step 2 is to ask yourself, what times what's on the outside will give you what's on the inside. Step 2, what times outside equals inside. Step 3, actually multiply. And don't forget to multiply this other term that's out here. Step 4, subtract. And step 5, repeat. You're going to keep doing it. Okay? So standard form, what times outside will give you inside, multiply, subtract, repeat. Okay? Go ahead and take a moment. Try to set this one up. Just set it up, and then we're going to try it in just 1 second. Okay. So you're going to put 15x squared plus 8x minus 12, and then you've got 3x plus 1 on the outside. Okay, so again, you're going to ask yourself, what times 3x will give you 15x squared? So I know that 5 times 3 will give me 15, and x times x will give me x squared. So 5x times 3x, I'm going to do this in a different color. 5x times 3x, it gives me 15x squared. And 5x times 1, because that guy's chilling out there too, and we got to make sure that we share our cookies. And we're going to subtract. So 15x squared minus 15x squared gives us 0. And 8x minus 5x gives us 3x. I'm going to bring this junk down. And we'll repeat this process. So 3x is our goal. So what times 3x will give us 3x? Well, 1 will. So 1 times 3x will give us 3x. 1 times 1 gives us 1. And then we're going to subtract that mess. That's going to give us 0. Negative 12 minus 1 is going to give us negative 13. Well, I can't repeat this process, right? Because nothing times 3x will give me negative 13. So this is my remainder. I'm going to take him. I'm going to write him up here at the top. And then I'm going to say 3x plus 1 down in the bottom. So my final answer written out is going to be 5x plus 1 minus 13 over 3x plus 1. Okay? So these two problems down here at the bottom, go ahead and try them. Make sure that you write them out in standard form first before you start doing anything. Okay? Notice how number 2 over here is not in standard form. You got to make sure that you write it in standard form first. So I'm going to try to do this pretty quickly just because I'm running out of time. But remember, you can pause the video and go back and watch what I was doing. So I'm going to ask myself, what times x will give me x squared? X will. I'm going to multiply that out. And then I'm going to subtract. So this will cancel out. And I'm going to get 5x minus negative 3x. That'll give me 8x. I'm going to bring this guy down. Okay? And then I'm going to ask myself, what times x will give me 8x? That'll be 8. 8 times x will give me 8x. 8 times negative 3 will give me negative 24. I'm going to subtract them. So this will cancel out. Negative 28 minus negative 24 is going to give me negative 4. I can't repeat that process anymore, so I'm just going to write this guy negative 4 over x minus 3 as my remainder. On this one over here, you got to make sure that you're in standard form. So this is going to be 6x cubed plus 5x squared minus 3x minus 12 underneath the division line. And then I'm going to ask myself, what times 3x will give me 6x cubed? 2x squared will make that happen. Okay, and then I'm going to multiply by this. And then I'm going to subtract. And 5x squared minus negative 8x squared is going to give me a positive 13x squared. Bring this guy down. Then next, it's going to be, and this is where we're going to have a little bit of fractions, and I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to do it in the next video.